I was thinking recently about this incredibly simple act.
Yeah.
Just the mundane, everyday reality of, buying something.
Right, like making a normal purchase.
Yeah, exactly. Like, let's say you're buying a car, or I don't know, even just booking a holiday somewhere.
Sure.
You sit down, you look at your budget, you compare the features. Maybe you want the sunroof,
Right.
right? Or maybe you decide you don't really need it.
Yeah, or like with the holiday, maybe you want that ocean view, but, the garden view is totally fine and saves you some cash.
Exactly. You weigh those options. You might haggle a little bit, and if the price just isn't right or the terms don't suit you, what do? You just walk away.
Right, because it's entirely voluntary.
It is. It's clean. It's a clean transaction. But then I was reading through our sources for today's deep dive, and I started thinking about what happens when you step into a completely different arena.
Oh, yeah.
Like, try to apply that exact same consumer mindset, that haggling mindset, to buying access to life-saving emergency surgery,
Yeah, that does not work.
or securing clean drinking water for your neighborhood. Suddenly that whole system feels profoundly uncomfortable, doesn't it?
It really does. I mean, the entire atmosphere of the transaction just shifts immediately.
Right.
The comfort of that consumer experience completely evaporates, and it gets replaced by something that feels, well, almost biologically urgent.
Biologically urgent. I like that phrasing.
Yeah, because you aren't browsing anymore.
Yeah.
You aren't weighing luxury options like a sunroof. You are literally trying to secure the baseline conditions for your own survival.
Exactly. And that discomfort, that intense friction we feel when we try to treat our literal survival like a shopping spree,
Right.
that is exactly what we are exploring today. We're going on a deep dive into one of the most, I think, profound moral and economic questions out there right now.
It really is.
We're asking, based on our source material, should essential resources, things like water, healthcare, education,
Hmm.
should they ever be for profit? Or are some things just simply too fundamental to human life to be, governed by the logic of the market?
It is a massive question, and I think we need to establish right away for you, the listener, that we are not just having some dry academic debate about economic models here.
No, definitely not.
We are talking about the actual emotional and philosophical stakes of human existence. I mean, the sources make it clear that this is a debate about what human beings owe to each other.
Right. What constitutes a fundamental human right?
Exactly. It's asking whether the market, which, let's be honest, is a fantastic tool for distributing smartphones and luxury vacations.
Oh, it's incredible at that.
It really is. But is it actually the right tool for organizing human survival? Because the source material argues that when you put survival on the market, you are basically making a structural statement about the value of human life itself.
Wow. Okay, let's unpack this, because if we're going to dive into the morality of these for-profit systems, we need to be crystal clear about what that term actually means.
Yeah, definitions are important here.
Because it is so easy, right, to fall into this trap where we hear the phrase for profit and we immediately picture like a cartoon villain in a boardroom.
Right, laughing maniacally while denying people their medicine.
Exactly. We have to script that cartoon image away.
We do, because that's just not how it works in reality. The text we're looking at is very precise. When we say an essential good is for profit, we mean that its distribution is organized primarily through market exchange,
Okay.
and that the providers of that good or service are seeking a financial return. That's it. The central organizing mechanism is the generation of revenue.
The engine running the machine.
Yes, exactly. The
Yeah.
engine. It does not mean the people running the machine are evil or greedy or, intentionally providing low-quality service.
I am so glad you brought that up, because it really is tempting to just slap a label on it and say all profit-making institutions are inherently bad.
Right. Which is just false.
Yeah, we all know that isn't true in practice. I mean, a private medical clinic can be staffed by incredibly caring, deeply empathetic doctors who literally save lives every single day.
Absolutely.
And a private for-profit school can have some of the most dedicated, brilliant teachers you will ever meet.
For sure. Or a private water company can have engineers who maintain the pipe infrastructure flawlessly.
Right. So if the people inside these institutions are generally good, hardworking people with strong morals, what is the actual problem? I mean, where does this moral friction come from?
Well, according to the sources, it comes from the structure itself. The question isn't personal, it's systemic.
Systemic. Oh,
Yeah. It asks, are the basic goods that people depend on for their very life and dignity being organized by a system whose central logic is financial return?
right.
You can have a literal saint working within a system, but if the system's foundational rule, its absolute bottom line is to generate a financial return.
Then the outcomes have to match that rule.
Exactly. The system will inevitably produce outcomes aligned with that rule. The personal morality of the individuals inside that system, it just cannot always override the structural logic of the system itself.
Okay, so it's like, think about a high-end restaurant.
Okay.
The chef might genuinely love feeding people. Like they might pour their absolute heart and soul into the craft of cooking.
Right, it's their passion.
Yeah. But if the restaurant doesn't turn a profit, the doors close.
Yep.
The love of feeding people is entirely secondary to the math of staying open.
That's a really good analogy.
And that's fine for a steakhouse.
Yeah.
But if we apply that exact same math to a hospital,
The center of gravity shifts entirely.
right, everything eventually orbits around that profit margin, no matter how amazing or caring the doctors are.
That's a great way to put it. The engine is built to do one specific thing. And to really understand why that engine becomes so problematic when we are talking about essential goods, we have to look at how markets define the concept of need.
Oh, this is fascinating, because the market's definition of need is fundamentally different from a human being's definition, isn't it?
It's entirely different.
How so?
Yeah.
Because, if I eat a car, the market sees that need and it sells me a car. It seems pretty aligned on the surface.
It seems aligned until you look at the underlying mechanics. In economics, demand doesn't just mean I want this.
Right.
It doesn't even mean I desperately require this to live. Economic demand means I want this and I have the money to pay for it.
Oh, yeah. And I have the money.
Exactly. In a normal market, the system responds to one thing above all else, which is purchasing power. It responds to profitable customers.
Wow.
It does not respond to human need in the abstract. But when we are talking about essential goods, the biological reality is that they absolutely must respond to pure human need.
Okay, let's ground this in a real example for everyone listening. Think about someone who needs insulin to stay alive.
Right, a perfect example.
Or, a community that desperately needs clean drinking water.
Yeah.
The biological reality of those needs remains urgently, screamingly critical, regardless of whether that person has a high ability to pay.
Yes.
The need is a constant. The wallet is the variable.
Exactly. And this creates a massive moral tension. It is a clash of two entirely different questions. What's fascinating here is that the market, by its very design, only asks one question: who can pay?
Who can pay, right?
But justice and, just our basic sense of human morality requires us to ask a completely different question, which is, who needs this most?
Wow. Yeah, those are entirely different questions.
They are. And when you try to force essential human requirements into a system designed to only answer who can pay, you get a mechanical failure. The system simply isn't built to care. It's built to cash out.
I want to try an analogy here because I think it helps visualize this tension really well. Let's look at surge pricing.
Oh, yeah. That's a visceral one.
We all know how it works on, rideshare apps, right? It's raining, everyone wants a ride home from the concert, so the price of the ride triples.
Yep. $10 becomes $30?
Exactly. And in a normal market, for a normal service, that works. The high price encourages more drivers to get out on the road, and if you don't want to pay the $30, you just walk, or you wait an hour.
Right, you have options.
But let's apply that exact mechanism to an emergency. Imagine a hurricane is hitting a coastal city. Evacuation orders are given. The water is actively rising.
Okay.
If you apply surge pricing to getting a ride out of that city, what happens?
Well, the price skyrockets to thousands of dollars.
Right. And strictly speaking, a market transaction is still occurring, isn't it? The people who pay the thousands of dollars are making a choice.
Sure, in quotes.
But is it a free choice? The text argues that in ordinary markets, we imagine voluntary exchange between equal parties, like that car buying scenario.
Oh.
But with essentials, like fleeing a flood or buying life-saving medicine for a sick child, that choice is deeply, deeply pressured by absolute necessity.
It's an illusion.
You don't have the leverage to walk away. It's like a negotiation where one person is holding all the oxygen in the room.
That is such a stark image. And I'd ask you, the listener, to really put yourself in that situation for a second. Imagine bargaining for a service at your absolute weakest.
Yeah.
The text argues this vulnerability means the market relationship is not fully free. You can't just fold your arms and say, no, thanks, I think I'll take my business elsewhere. when your child's life is on the line.
No, you can't.
Profit is operating where human beings are least able to bargain as equals. The seller holds all the cards.
And when you have that level of asymmetric power, when the consumer literally cannot walk away, the profit incentive can start to mutate.
Yes.
It stops being about building a better product to win your business, and it starts being about leveraging your inability to walk away.
Right, because the consumer is trapped by necessity. And this leads us to a really uncomfortable reality that the sources highlight: the danger of incentivized scarcity and exclusion.
Incentivized scarcity.
Yes. In some market structures, profit doesn't just increase when you serve more people. Sometimes profit actually increases when access is restricted.
Wait, break that down for me. How does a company make more money by serving fewer people? That feels completely counterintuitive.
Okay, think about luxury real estate.
Right.
A developer could buy a plot of land and build an affordable housing complex with, say, 200 small apartments, right?
Right.
Making a very thin profit margin on each one.
Lots of volume, low margin.
Exactly. Or they could build 10 ultra-luxury penthouses on that exact same plot of land, charge tens of millions of dollars for each one, and make a massive profit.
Wow.
The math often favors exclusion. It favors catering exclusively to the top. Now, apply that mechanism to essential services.
Ah, I see. So if you apply that to healthcare, the system naturally flows first to those who can pay the most, regardless of who is actually the sickest.
Yes.
We see this with things like concierge medicine or, VIP hospital wings. The resources, the best doctors, the newest equipment, they naturally gravitate toward the highest profit margin.
Exactly. And the sources note this happens in education, too. Education quality tracks strictly with family income, regardless of the potential of the child. The market efficiency is working perfectly, but it is working perfectly to exclude people.
That is a heavy realization. It really is.
It is, because if we extrapolate on this core finding, the profound issue isn't just that profit exists in these spaces.
Right.
The deeper issue is that the structural incentives of profit can directly, mechanically conflict with the concept of equal human worth.
Oh.
If we believe all humans have equal fundamental worth, but we use a system that distributes the basic requirements for life based on wealth, our economic system is actively undermining our stated moral values.
To move this from, the abstract logic of markets down into the concrete physical reality of our bodies, we have to examine the most elemental biological need we have.
We do.
The ultimate test case for this entire debate. We have to talk about water.
Water is the most uncompromising example in the text.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because unlike ordinary goods, the phones, the cars, the holidays we mentioned, water is an absolute non-negotiable necessity for life.
Right.
Without clean water, biological chains break down instantly, disease spreads rapidly, communities just completely collapse.
Yeah, and the source material makes a really strong case against profit in water. It points out that treating water purely as a commodity is a literal category mistake.
A category mistake?
Yes, it's a mistake in classifying reality. Like we said earlier, you can opt out of buying a new phone. You literally cannot opt out of drinking water.
Right, your biology demands it. You can't just boycott water because the price is too high.
Exactly. And because you cannot opt out, the power dynamic is absolute. Let's look at the physical infrastructure of water for a second. It is what economists call a natural monopoly.
Okay, what does that mean in practice?
Well, think about a city. You have a massive network of pipes running underground.
Yeah.
You have reservoirs, massive treatment plants, pumping stations.
Yeah, huge infrastructure.
It is physically impossible and honestly economically absurd to have 5 different competing water companies running 5 different sets of pipes down Main Street so that the consumer can shop around for the best water rate.
Right. If I don't like my internet provider, I can just call another one and they flip a switch.
Yeah.
But if I don't like my water provider, what do? I can't hook my kitchen sink up to a competitor's pipe.
No, you can't.
I'm just stuck.
You are captive. And that biological demand, combined with that captive infrastructure, changes the moral equation entirely. Placing a basic condition of human survival under the power of a private monopoly or, making it subject to price fluctuations, it places life itself under market power.
Let's talk about how that actually plays out when a municipality decides to privatize its water system.
Okay.
Say a city is broke. The pipes are 100 years old, they're leaking everywhere, and the city just doesn't have the tax revenue to fix them.
A very common scenario, sadly.
Yeah. So A private company comes in and says, hey, we'll buy the water system, we'll bring the capital, we'll fix the pipes, we'll run it super efficiently. On paper, it sounds like a win-win. What is the mechanism that causes that to go wrong?
Well, the mechanism is the required return on investment. The private company is bringing capital to fix the pipes, yes. But they are a business. They have shareholders.
Right.
They need to turn a profit on that investment. How do they generate that profit? There's really only two ways: increase revenue or decrease costs.
And increasing revenue in a water monopoly means
Raising the water rates on the citizen.
raising the rates
Yeah.
and decreasing costs.
Often that means cutting back on maintenance, reducing staff, or, just ignoring preventative upgrades until something breaks catastrophically. And remember, the citizens are captive. They have to pay the new higher rate. So what happens when a family simply cannot pay the newly doubled water bill?
The company shuts off the water.
The company shuts off the water because in a pure market system, if you don't pay, you don't get the service.
But we are talking about water. Without it, you can't flush toilets, you can't bathe, you can't cook.
Exactly. Disease risks skyrocket. Child Protective Services might even get called because a home without running water is legally considered uninhabitable.
Oh, God.
A pure market mechanism, operating exactly as it's designed to, is triggering a cascading societal and biological failure.
It feels incredibly dystopian, but we should clarify the text's caveat here. This doesn't mean private actors are banished entirely from the water sector forever, right? It's not like the government has to suddenly manufacture its own wrenches and build its own trucks.
Oh, right. That's a necessary clarification. Private engineering firms can absolutely build the pipes. Private tech companies develop the filtration software. Private contractors help with delivery. But the overarching governance of the resource, the ultimate control, cannot be an ordinary source of profit. The moral framework dictates that water must be treated first as a public good.
Not an ordinary source of profit.
Exactly. The market can be a vendor to the public good, but it cannot be the owner of the public good.
Okay, so water represents our physical survival as a collective community. You can't negotiate with thirst. But let's shift gears to something that represents our vulnerability as isolated individuals.
Healthcare.
Healthcare. And honestly, this brings even more intense emotional stakes to the market discussion.
It really does. Healthcare involves a completely different landscape of human experience.
Yep.
It is inextricably linked to pain, to physical disability, to profound fear, and ultimately to life and death stakes.
Yeah.
When a person is seeking medical care, they are often at the absolute lowest, weakest point of their entire lives.
You think about the actual experience of a medical emergency. Just picture it. You are in an emergency room. The fluorescent lights are buzzing overhead. There's that distinct, terrible smell of antiseptic everywhere. You are terrified because your chest hurts. Or worse, your child is burning up with a fever.
Right.
You are not shopping in that moment.
Yeah.
You are not scrolling through reviews on your phone, carefully comparing the hourly rates of different anesthesiologists like you're picking a hotel room.
Right, because medical need is not the same as market preference.
Exactly.
And because of that difference, applying pure market logic to healthcare fundamentally alters the patient-doctor relationship. The text explains why this feels so harsh. Let's look at the actual mechanics of billing in a purely for-profit medical system. Consider the fee-for-service model.
Okay, break that down for me.
Mhm.
How does fee-for-service actually work mechanically?
In a fee-for-service model, a hospital or a doctor is paid for every single test, every single procedure, every single scan they perform.
Okay.
The more they do, the more revenue they generate. Now, combine that with a profit motive. What does the system inherently incentivize?
Well, it incentivizes doing as much as possible, regardless of whether it's strictly necessary. It incentivizes overtreatment.
Precisely. If a patient comes in with a headache, a cautious medical approach might be rest and observation.
Right.
But a profit-driven approach might push for an immediate, highly expensive MRI because that MRI generates significant revenue for the clinic. The system subtly, or sometimes very overtly, pressures the medical professionals to maximize those billing cuts.
Oh, wow. And the reverse is true too, right?
Yes.
If you have a system where a health insurance company is trying to maximize its profit, their core incentive is to deny care.
Exactly. Their mechanism for profit is collecting your monthly premiums while minimizing the payouts for your actual care. So they build massive, complex bureaucratic hurdles.
Oh, don't even get me started on prior authorizations.
Right. They require prior authorizations. They deny claims, forcing the sick patient to spend hours on the phone fighting for coverage when they should be resting.
That's exhausting.
The friction isn't an accident, though. The friction is the business model.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the pursuit of profit fundamentally governs the system, and it risks inevitably treating vulnerable, terrified patients as mere revenue opportunities or cost liabilities.
Yes, rather than human beings in desperate need of healing.
It reduces a human crisis to a line item on a ledger.
That is the mechanical friction right there. The system is operating exactly as designed. It's maximizing profit, but it is doing so at the direct expense of human dignity.
Man. So, if water secures our biological survival and healthcare secures our physical vulnerability, we have to look at the resource that secures our future, our equality, and really our society itself.
Yes.
Let's dive into education, because education is framed in the text as something quite different from water and medicine, but equally essential.
It is. Education is the shaper of opportunity. It is the foundation for civic participation, for economic freedom, and for the development of critical thinking.
Right.
It is essentially how a person becomes a fully actualized citizen.
And there is a massive societal risk outlined here if we treat education purely as a market. If good education is heavily tied to wealth, if the best schools are simply the ones that cost the most money, then birth advantage hardens over time.
It crystallizes.
Exactly. Education, which is supposed to be the great equalizer, the path to equal citizenship, it stops doing that job entirely. Instead, it morphs into a machine for reproducing class hierarchy.
The hierarchy machine. The mechanics of how this happens are deeply embedded in how we fund schools. Let's look at public education funded primarily through local property taxes, which is very common.
Okay, walk me through how that creates a hierarchy machine in practice.
If a school's budget is directly tied to the property values of the surrounding neighborhood, what happens?
Well,
A wealthy zip code with multi-million-dollar homes generates a massive pool of tax revenue. That school gets the best facilities, the newest technology, and they can afford to pay the highest salaries to attract the most talented, experienced teachers.
right, they have a huge budget. And then 10 miles down the road in a poorer zip code.
The property values are low, so the tax revenue is a fraction of the wealthy district.
Right.
The school is underfunded, the class sizes are huge, and the building might literally be crumbling.
Wow.
The children in both zip codes are equally deserving, equally capable of learning, but the system has determined their starting line based entirely on the wealth of their parents.
And when you introduce purely private, for-profit education into that mix, it accelerates the siphoning, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Wealthy families just opt out of the public system entirely. They take their resources, their political capital, and they pour it into private academies.
Yes. And the private academies can offer smaller class sizes, specialized tutors, pristine environments. They compete for prestige and revenue. But by pulling the top tier of wealth and talent out of the public sphere, the baseline public system is left with even fewer resources and often the hardest to reach students.
But let me push back on this for a second, just playing devil's advocate using the text's own framing here. Yeah. Let's look at the other side of the coin. If schools are treated like businesses and they are competing for revenue and prestige, aren't they highly motivated to be the absolute best they can be?
Yes, that's the logic.
Doesn't that competition drive up standards overall? If a school is terrible, people will leave. The school will fail, and a better school will take its place. I mean, that's the core argument for markets, right?
Yes, and it's a very strong argument. Competition absolutely drives a specific type of excellence. But the text asks us to consider, who are they competing for? If these institutions are competing mainly for wealthy families and their tuition dollars, then children who happen to be born into families with fewer resources are inevitably left with weaker foundations through no fault of their own.
Right.
It is too central to equal opportunity to be treated simply as a business opportunity. You cannot have a true meritocracy if the starting line is determined by the wealth of your parents.
That makes a lot of sense. But it brings us to a massive pivot point in our deep dive today. We've spent a lot of time outlining the severe moral and structural friction of putting profit in charge of essentials.
Yeah.
But is the solution to eradicate profit entirely?
Well, no.
Right. We cannot have a complete picture without looking at the genuine, robust defense of market involvement that the source material actually provides.
We absolutely must look at the pro-profit arguments because they are deeply rooted in reality. The primary defense revolves around efficiency, and specifically, the danger of bureaucratic stagnation.
Bureaucratic stagnation.
Yes. The reality is that entirely public, state-run systems can sometimes become incredibly slow. They can become deeply bureaucratic, complacent, and completely unresponsive to the changing needs of the people they serve.
Oh, I think we all have our horror stories of dealing with a massive public
Yep.
bureaucracy. Going to the DMV, taking a number, waiting 3 hours in plastic chairs,
Exactly.
only to get to the front and be told you have the wrong form. And the person behind the counter literally could not care less because their job is guaranteed regardless of their customer service.
Right, there's no incentive.
Now, apply that level of bureaucratic indifference to a healthcare queue.
Exactly. What is the failure state of a public agency? If a government-run hospital is inefficient, if it has massive wait times, if it is wasting resources, it doesn't go bankrupt.
No, it just keeps going.
It often just requests a larger budget from the government the next year. There is no structural mechanism forcing it to be agile. In this view, profit acts as an unparalleled mechanism for performance.
It forces them to adapt.
It forces an institution to improve its service, respond to the consumer, and ruthlessly reduce waste because if it doesn't, it dies.
And we aren't just talking about abstract efficiency, like shorter lines at a clinic. The text highlights that we're talking about massive leaps in human capability. Let's look at medical research and pharmaceutical development.
Oh, this is a huge one.
The profit motive is arguably the most powerful engine for innovation we have ever created.
It really is. The mechanics of pharmaceutical research are incredibly risky and outrageously expensive. It can cost billions of dollars and take over a decade to develop a single new life-saving drug.
Billions.
A massive public bureaucracy is naturally risk-averse. It is very difficult to convince politicians and taxpayers to gamble billions of dollars on a new chemical compound that might just fail in clinical trials.
But a private pharmaceutical company, driven by the potential of a massive exclusive profit, will take that risk.
Exactly. They will pour billions into R&D. And while we might recoil at the high price of the resulting drug, the fact remains, the drug was invented.
Right.
Millions of lives are saved by technologies and medicines that simply wouldn't exist without the aggressive, risk-taking engine of the profit motive.
The profit motive acts as a bounty system for solving human problems.
A bounty system, exactly. And it expands choice, too. A massive, centralized, one-size-fits-all public system is rarely going to serve every single individual perfectly. Markets, by their nature, excel at offering variety and flexibility. They can offer different types of clinics, different service models, different specialized schools or teaching methods. The stark warning from the text is that without the financial reward that profit provides, these systems might simply stagnate.
So what does this all mean? We are stuck in a paradox here.
We are.
We have profit causing deep, fundamental moral friction by treating survival as a commodity, prioritizing wealth over need, and incentivizing scarcity.
Right.
But at the exact same time, we have profit driving the life-saving innovation, the efficiency, and the agility that massive public bureaucracies struggle to achieve. How does the text resolve this?
The resolution requires a highly nuanced distinction. The overarching thesis of the text isn't a simplistic all profit is evil and must be destroyed.
Okay.
Nor is it the equally simplistic markets are perfect and should decide everything. The careful framework they propose is whether profit is allowed to operate at the edges of a system or if it is placed in charge at the center of the system.
Profit at the edges versus profit in charge. Let's explore that compromise because it feels like the key to everything we've discussed today.
It really is.
We can have mixed systems, right?
Mm-hmm.
Essential goods can involve private participation, but those systems must be entirely governed by overarching moral principles. Principles like universal access, affordability, human dignity, and an equal minimum provision.
This introduces what the text calls the moral red line.
A more red line.
It is a boundary that a civilized society cannot cross. The principle is this: essential resources must be guaranteed as basic social goods, not merely sold as commodities.
Right.
Clean water must be accessible to everyone regardless of their wallet. Basic healthcare and education must not depend on the wealth you were born into. That is the baseline guarantee.
And once that rock-solid public guarantee exists, once no one is dying of thirst or dying of treatable diseases because they are poor, then the system can open up. Once the floor is established, societies can still allow private supplementary care. You can allow private service contracts for municipal water systems, provided the city sets strict rules on pricing. You can encourage regulated commercial innovation in pharmaceuticals.
Yes. Profit is allowed to exist and even thrive, but it is structurally stripped of its power to decide who gets the basic essentials of life. Profit is demoted.
Demoted.
It becomes a tool in the toolbox rather than the master of the house. We spend so much time arguing public versus private as if it's a team sport.
Yeah, we really do.
But this raises an important question, the deepest truth of the text. The true question is not public or private, but what must never be allowed to depend on profit alone.
What must never be allowed to depend on profit alone? That is the exact question we want to leave you with today. As we summarize this journey for you, remember the core finding.
Okay.
Water, healthcare, and education are not ordinary goods.
No, they are.
You can't haggle over them like a used car. They are the absolute baseline conditions of life, freedom, and your ability to participate in society. A truly just society might be perfectly fine tolerating profit around the edges, driving innovation and efficiency. But the moment profit is allowed to sit at the center, the moment it makes the life and death decisions, human flourishing becomes a hostage to what someone else can gain from it.
Exactly.
And that leads directly to a vital reflection, building on the questions posed at the end of the source text. It asks, what does it reveal about a society if basic survival and opportunity are treated mainly as revenue streams?
That is a profound question.
It is. So I challenge you to take that question into your own life today. Look around your own community. Look at how things actually work in your town, in your city.
Yeah, pay attention to the structures.
If our collective moral report card as a society is graded purely on how we distribute water, how we distribute healing, and how we distribute knowledge, what does our current reality reveal about us? Are we truly treating our neighbors as equal citizens with fundamental human rights? Or are we secretly, quietly accepting a system where survival itself is just another VIP lane we hope we can afford?